Hello YouTube, my name is Jack and welcome back to another tournament in review. Today we look at the first time and the last time that I ever played Slaanesh at a tournament. Yep, that's right, they're dead. They're gone. They have been hit with the single biggest nerf bat in 40k history, so hard that some of them have even been removed from the game. Before that happened, I managed to go to an 8-player teams event with about 13 teams, with all of the various teams from the different states here in Australia, and I had never played Slaanesh before. I probably only had about 3 or 4 practice games going into it, and today I'm going to show you my list and talk about my games, show you some pictures, and see if they were broken. Before we do all of that, if you enjoy the videos that I put out for you on the regular, then please consider supporting what we do here by liking, subscribing, and of course, gifts and memberships, become a member, or check out our Patreon. On Patreon, you can get coaching services for only 50 Australian an hour, and that is about 35 US, which also includes our guide on how to play, which has tips and tricks. It has all of our shorts in order, labeled with notes and everything like that. I've worked really hard on it. And we also have a supporter chat, and you get access to the TTS events that run monthly. If you win the TTS event, you also get a month of Discord Nitro. So for just 35 US, you can have an hour of coaching with me, ask any questions that you ever want, get access to a guide, and potentially have a month of Discord Nitro, along with 4 games organized in a tournament. Aside from that, we also have commission painting services as well. If you want some demons, or any models for that matter, as beautiful as mine, then you can get some commission painted services from my lovely partner Adela in the description down below. With that said, also go check out R&R Hobbies for all your hobby goodness over there. You can get an additional 5% off just by using code Barnyard. If you live in the OCE region, this is an absolute must. Now with that said, I'm just going to give you a quick rundown of my list and then each of my games. So for my list, what did I take? Well, a lot of people have been taking the battery for Slaanesh, which is the contorted epitome with 10 demonettes. And the reason why you take it is there's a stratagem that allows you to pass wounds from any of your Slaanesh units, except monsters, so no keepers and no demon princes, to any other unit within 12. Now the wounds that you pass over become mortal wounds, which means that the contorted epitomes unit gave you a 4+ feel no pain against those wounds. And honestly, I think that that was intentional. I don't think Games Workshop quite thought about the contorted epitomes unit before they introduced Legion of Excess, but they made that stratagem specifically for that unit. But what they didn't consider is that indirect fire absolutely sucks, and that unit is 180 points. You know what else is 180 points? A Soul Grinder. And they absolutely one-tap whatever they hit. They're hard to kill, they have great shooting, and they can also be a battery if you need them to be, and then heal their wounds from the shadow. So naturally, I opted for no demonettes. The other thing I would like to say is that naturally this video is speaking about all of these Legion of Excess buffs and things as if they were pre-nerf. You can't really do any of these things anymore, and also they're not really playable at all. So it sucks. But that's not why we're here. We're here to see if they're broken. So in my list, I took 2 of everything. I took 2 keepers, 2 grinders, 1 with a claw, 1 with a sword, and 1 of my keepers also had an enhancement Soul Glutton to heal some wounds if I damage an enemy. And then I also had 2 Torment Bringer on Exalted Seeker Chariot. Now these gave sustained hits and fight on death, and also one of mine had the aura for +1 to hit. Then I also had 2 units of 3 Fiends. Now I didn't have a lot of Fiends in my list, mainly because I don't own more than 6 Fiends, but also on top of that, I actually don't think that running too many Fiends was optimal anyway, because if you had 6 of them, they would run in, they would one-tap whatever they hit, and then they would die in the next turn. Whereas it was better to just have 3 run in, maybe 1 dies, because you're giving up your fights first, and then 2 of them just clear whatever the heck you're hitting anyway. I mean, with full rerolls to hit and wound, potentially sustained, potentially +1 to wound, potentially +1 to hit, devs, I don't think anything's going to survive anyway. So 2 units of 3 Fiends, 2 units of 5 Seekers, mainly for the scout move to block out your opponent. I also had 2 units of Fleshhounds so that I could sit them in my backfield just for nice cheap units. I had the Mask. I had a single Beast of Nurgle so I could deep strike it and do some actions with it as well. And then I also had 2 units of 3 Nurglings, mainly to block out enemy infiltrating moves, for example Votann or something like World Eaters. And the game plan was relatively simple. Just sit one of everything on each flank and then have the Mask and the Beast just there for actions to run around and do various things. And for the most part, it worked out pretty well. In my first game, I versed Dan, a good friend of the channel who also does some terrain for our channel as well, and he was playing, as usual, his Grey Knights. Now in this game, I feel like because I had not played very many other games up until this point, I was a little bit rusty. I put this down as a 15-5 for me. 15-5 means that I expect to beat Dan by at least 26 points, which is a fair amount. That is a huge call in terms of team scoring because it means that you're beating your opponent by quite a lot. In fact, a lot of my scores I put down were 15s, and that's mainly just because Slaanesh is the army to do that with. They are a pushing army, they're very aggressive, they want to table their opponent and then win the game by 100, not by 1 point. In this game, it didn't go particularly well for me. I don't think either player really got particularly lucky or unlucky, I just played not that great and I pushed my stuff forward way too aggressively. If I'd waited for Dan to come to me a bit more, I think I would have had a bit more play into him, and he even said this throughout the game. More so on this because I like to bully Dan, because he's a good friend and he knows that he loves it. He actually made a huge mistake in this game and cost him another 15, maybe 20 points. That's okay because I've made many mistakes that did exactly the same thing, but he was really upset about this and whinged and complained for 30 minutes. And then he beat me anyway, 11-9. So shout out to Dan. Thank you, Dan. That was a great game. I'm gonna ridicule you on the internet because I can. Now, I did lose the first round, so going into the next round, I was a little bit apprehensive, but surprisingly, even though my team won the round, we went into an easier team. In fact, we went into Jake's team, who's been on the channel many times before as well. Now, Jake had a team of a lot more newer players, and Jake knows himself that he loves 40k, but maybe the competitive side of the game is just not his shtick. He's versed me many times at competitive events before, and always he just tends to have a fun time, but kind of give up towards the first, second, and third turns. And that's kind of what happened here. We played a fun game, but it was a little bit of a stomp, 20-0. Slaanesh is a brutal army if you don't really know exactly what you're doing to beat it. And so that was just a fun game. Shout out to Jake. His team is probably the nicest team there. And there was a lot of really competitive events, so they got absolutely flogged in a few rounds. Next up, I versed a lovely bloke called Ewart. Now, Ewart was from, I think, Team Queensland or Team Canberra, I can't remember, one of the more competitive teams, and he's known around as a very competitive player. So I was really going up against it in this match. I put down yet another 15, and he was playing Vanguard Ultramarine spam. So he had Gulliman, he had 12 Inceptors, 6 of Plasma and 6 of Bolters. He had a fair few chaff units like Phobos units like Infiltrators, Incursors for mortal wounds. He had a single JPI Jump Pack Intercessor unit, and all in all, he had a fair amount of tricks. His army could reactively move if I tried to charge it. He had a lieutenant that could hold points who was blown up and could reactively move. He had a unit of 10 Stern Guard, lots of shooting that could reactively move 6 after they shoot, or if I get too close, or if I try and charge them. It was just a ton of reactive moves that were really annoying. Now, I did get a little bit of luck in this game, and some things survived, allowing me to hit back. For instance, in the middle, I actually had a Soul Grinder survive on like 8 wounds from the shooting phase, and then in the fight phase, Gulliman and a Company of Heroes unit with Uriel Ventress didn't kill it. It then hit back and killed Gulliman in 1 hit, who stood back up, and in the next turn, I was able to kill him. On top of this, in that next shooting phase, on just 3 wounds remaining, that Soul Grinder killed 4 of the Inceptors in shooting. It hit and wounded, and he failed 4 saves using a command point reroll on the 3 damage shooting weapon. Super lucky, allowing me to just really close out this game. I had a Keeper of Secrets slip into his backline, allowing me to burn his home objective because we were playing Scorched Earth. Now this was a fair swing towards the end of the game, and I did end up winning exactly 15-5. Beautiful stuff there against an incredible opponent. He played a really strong game, and honestly, I think he deserved to win that game a lot more than me. I probably won because I got a little bit lucky, and Slaanesh, man, when you get in, they hurt. I can see why in this game they might have needed some nerfs. Now in the next game, I versed another good friend who has been on the channel before, not for a stream game, but for our Thankmas charity live stream. It is Will, aka Kirby. Now Kirby is a phenomenal player. In fact, this was Team New South Wales. The main Team New South Wales, the 8 that are selected to go and play against all of the other state teams. Naturally, this was going to be one of our hardest matches yet. But luckily for me, Kirby was playing Votann. Now I put down this matchup as a 15, I believe, in my matrix. Perhaps it was around a 12, mainly because Slaanesh has a really annoying stratagem where if the enemy tries to shoot at me, I can make them take a battle shock test. And if they fail that battle shock test at -1 or -2 within shadow, then they can't shoot into that unit with their unit at all, and they have to redeclare their target. Now he was playing 2 units of 6 bikes, 2 land forts, 2 units of 10 guys, 2 units of 10 berserks, all with hammers. It was going to be a little bit rough for me. But again, I got a fair amount of luck. I ended up going second in this game, and we were playing supply drop. So naturally, if you go second and you hold the primary at the end of the game, you get 15 points. And in turn 2 and 3, he tried to block out my keepers with using the land forts by positioning them sideways. And in 1 turn, I think I killed a Sagittor, both land forts. I did a Cavalcade of Blades stratagem for a mortal wound impact from my Keeper of Secrets into a Iron Hair champion, the Smash champion on foot, and I rolled 5 4-ups on 6 dice instantly, killing it as well. And then I killed another Sagittor on the left flank. So that's 4 vehicles and a character in 1 turn. It was absolutely savage, and in his next turn he killed 1 keeper. So from that point on, it was basically just brutally murder his whole army. I ended up basically tabling him and beat him 18-2. Yeah, I got a fair amount of luck. In fact, in one of my combats, I had a Soul Grinder kill a Sagittor where Fiends had charged it as well, and those Fiends, after it was dead, piled into a land fort and did 14 devastating wounds to the land fort, almost one-tapping it with the Fiends alone. So all in all, at this point, I am up 3 wins, and pretty convincing wins as well, and I had 1 loss against Dan, which, to be honest, I probably should have won. I think it was favored for me to win. I just didn't really know what I was doing. In the last game, I ended up versing another player who was playing Votann, Rory. Now Rory not only was freakishly tall, my god man, how tall are you? It was scarier. The intimidation alone was crazy. It's like 6'5" or something, it's nuts. But he was a very good Votann player. In fact, I was so tired, I made so many mistakes. At the end of a 5-round tournament, on day 2, I was exhausted. I think I'd only slept for maybe 5 or 6 hours the night before and the night before that, and I was yawning like crazy. And on top of this, I got diced pretty hard. One of my Keepers of Secrets just with everything, and I think I failed maybe 24 ups in a row. It was absolutely savage. So all in all, between the luck and me being extremely tired, I still managed to get a tie, 74 all for a 10-10. Should I have won this game? Absolutely. I think it was well favored for me to win, and if I had not made so many mistakes so early, I think I probably would have tabled him. But though there was one very lucky moment in the middle where I had a keeper live on a single wound and then kill something to heal some wounds back with the enhancement and then fall back even though she rolled a 4 for her leadership 5 and still didn't pass battle shock, she managed to fall back anyway and go and kill something using the fallback and charge from the detachment. Now, despite all of these, I ended up 3 wins, 1 loss, barely, and 1 tie. All in all, a really great weekend, lots of lovely opponents, and I had a lot of fun. It was the first time and now the last time that I can even use this detachment because it's now been nerfed so hard it doesn't exist, and the units that you really need, like those Torment Bringer on chariots, are just legends. You can't even use them anymore. Was it a broken army? Honestly, maybe. If it is played at really, really high standard at the top tables, I don't actually see it being that oppressive. I think in lower skill level games, it can be really monstrous. People just don't know how to deal with so much raw damage coming out from every single unit, and they can't screen you effectively enough to be able to stop you from just 20-0ing them every single game. But at the top table, I think that people can really learn to play around it. Did it need some nerfs? Probably, I think so. I think that overall the rules were fine, but maybe some of the units could have gone up slightly in price. Particularly the Slaanesh units. The Soul Grinders I can see being fine because they're good in this detachment, but they're also not so good in other detachments. Whereas something like the Keeper of Secrets, Fiends, Seekers, even Demonettes could have gone up maybe 5 to 10 points a unit, and then everything else could have stayed exactly the same, and I think it would have just been a fair army to play. I don't think it needed the nerfs that it got. Some nerfs, sure. The nerfs that had, no. With that said, hopefully you enjoyed this little video, this little recap today. If you do, consider liking, subscribing. Definitely go check out the coaching service, the commission painting stuff as well, and also go and get some Warhammer for cheaper at R&R by using code Barnyard. With that said, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.